I feel, Mike, that the longer this impasse goes on, the less likely it is that Nylander and the Leafs will come together on something long term, because that means that the two will be in bed together for an indefinite period. Don't you feel like the more days that are added to this stalemate, the greater it is that bad blood and maybe distrust grow?
I'm sort of two minds right here because I think that the long-term deal is pretty much dead. Because if it was going to happen, I think it would have happened already. From every report that I've heard from Darren Drager, from Pierre LeBrun, the Nylander camp is not coming off the $8 million figure. The Leafs are in the $6 to $6.5 million a year on a long-term deal range, and that doesn't seem to be palatable to Nylander. So, that was the whole purpose behind Dubas going to Switzerland last week, was to communicate directly with Nylander and say, we still want you in the fold. Our plan is not to trade you. We want to sign you. If it's not for a long-term deal, then maybe the discussion with Louis Gross in New York on Sunday and early Monday was to work on a bridge deal. And if the bridge deal is the way to go, then it could get done fairly quickly. But as you said, I'm a little worried about if it doesn't get done in the next week, what that means. I am of the mind that if they don't get it done in the next week, that the odds of a trade occurring increase. But I'm also of the mind that if they sign a bridge deal, I think that's the last contract that William Nylander signs in Toronto, because you think of it, 2 or 3 years, Matthews will be signed long-term. Marner will be signed long-term. Tavares will have 3 or 4 years left on his deal. There simply won't be room to pay Nylander $8 million at that point, if he's had a couple good years. So I believe that he's signing his last contract with the Leafs.
Every time we bring up a bridge deal, I think of bridge mix. You ever had bridge mix?
No.
It might be exclusive to Canada, but it's like a bunch of chocolate-coated peanuts and stuff like that.
Never had it. Never had it.
It's delicious. Kyle Dubas is doing his due diligence for the Nylanderites out there who use the empirical evidence to support their position, to support their guy, and to say that, look, Nylander is not being treated fairly based on the numbers the Leafs are presenting to him. He should be paid what he is worth. And by golly, if you don't pay him what he's worth, don't you dare pay Mitch Marner anything more than what he's worth, because that'll be unfair to a player they believe is superior to Marner. Do you feel that this basically comes down to the Leafs being unfair here, and that no matter how this plays out, there's going to be frustration and some animosity directed at the organization when this finally comes to pass? Maybe animosity that the Leafs may not be able to make up for?
I mean, I mean, there may be hurt feelings. I don't think we'll ever hear about it. We haven't really heard a untoward word from either camp. I think it's mostly been criticism from fans and some media who just want this story to be over with and want Nylander either to get traded or to get signed and just move on. But I think that, right now, it's a situation where he's got no leverage. Everybody knows that. Nobody's going to sign him to an offer sheet. The comparables for other teams who have similar stats, similar analytics, it's not 8 million. It's in the 6.5 range. It's the Pasternak, it's Ehlers, it's Sean Monahan. So that's why. And I heard, I think it was Darren Drager this morning say he talked to another NHL general manager and basically said there's not a general manager out there that's paying William Nylander $8 million. So that's, that speaks to nobody signing him to an offer sheet. And, if he is traded, then, he's not going to be hitting a windfall if he gets traded someplace else with a team that has more cap space going forward. So again, I think they get him on the bridge deal. He plays this year. Maybe he plays next year. whatever, how long the deal is. But I don't see a pathway where the demand for salary with Marner, with Matthews, with Jake Gardner as a potential UFA next summer. How do they sign Nylander for $8 million? They can't.
Exactly. That's the point I'm making. And while you have the faction out there that is, they're fervent and they are ramped up in support of William Nylander to make their case with metrics and data that he is going to be underpaid and that he's being treated unfairly. And when compared to Mitch Marner, even John Tavares, they believe that he is superior to them. Why don't the Maple Leafs, if all of this data is evident and it's stark, it's right there, and the Leafs we know are champions of this, all of this data, why aren't the Leafs buying into this data, and why hasn't Nylander become more of a priority?
I think it's a situation where if William Nylander was their best player and they were a under 500 team, that they'd probably pay him greater than $6.5 million, that he'd probably be signed for 7 or 7.25 because they'd have the room to do it. But when you have Marner and you have Matthews and you have other players that you need to sign, again, it's the Brendan Shanahan, you need to take less. So everybody needs to take a little bit less to fit everybody in. And, I don't think, if Nylander is not willing to do that, then you probably know that, Matthews is going to be paid up near what Connor McDavid's going to be paid. And I don't know what Marner is going to be paid, but he's probably going to be more than Nylander because in general, most people think Marner is a more effective player. He's been more, he led the team in scoring last year. He was equal to Nylander in terms of points the year before. So, and the perception is that Marner is better. And honestly, I think he's a better player. I'm not saying Nylander is not a good player, but I think Marner is a better player. But yeah, it all is essentially when a player becomes a free agent and what he has in terms of a resume to use as leverage. And, he can't get a no trade clause. He's not going to be offer sheeted. So he has no leverage. It's either you sign it or you decide you're going to sign in the KHL or in the Swedish league and play out the year, but then you're an RFA next year and nothing changes.
Well, we know this, the stats indicate that William Nylander makes his teammates better. And that, in a 5-on-5 situation, he's more productive than virtually anybody on the team. When you compare that to Mitch Marner, he is a guy who picks up points on the power play, and that he's almost been he's been put in situations that allow him to succeed. William Nylander is a generator of creating chances. Any last words, Mike?
The news of Dubas in New York on Sunday. Now, like I said, he spoke to Louis Gross at Madison Square Garden during that game, but he took in the Rangers game against, I believe it was Calgary, and then watched the Philadelphia game yesterday. Now, the thing is, it's like, it very easily could be just him, checking out a couple games. I guess he didn't want to be commented or didn't want to be quoted in the media, but said he was just there to watch the game. I think he's serving both functions here. He's trying to get Nylander signed, but if he can't get him signed, I also think he's keeping his eye out in terms of, well, if I have to trade him before December 1st, what could I get